Good afternoon. As was said by the previous speaker, we have very short segments here, so we're trying to get a lot done. I'm going to try to avoid speaking like an auctioneer, but I can't really slow up too much. And when we're talking about innovation, we're really talking about something that's happening faster than ever before. We're talking about trends and predictions in banking, where data and analytics has taken the #1 spot above customer experience. But when you think about it, aren't data and analytics at the core of everything we're doing in the banking industry and in payments? If we don't get that part of it right, none of the other parts of what we're trying to achieve, whether it be partnering with another company, building fintech innovations, building faster payments, dealing with multi-channel engagement, any of that is going to take more and more data and analytics. So at the foundation of everything we're talking about, that's at the core. We also have to realize that any of you that have kids or grandkids or know someone who's 25 years or younger, not one of those people has known anything but digital. They've had smartphones, they've had iPads. All they know is how to engage visually and tactically. And with everything we're doing in this industry, we have to realize we have to build for that generation. We have to build for a generation that's not just millennials. Conversation I had with a gentleman last week, I said, I feel like I'm a millennial in a baby boomer body, as bad as the body may be. But bottom line is, I'm using social media and digital all the time. As a question, how many of you have Facebook? Raise your hands. Okay. Not a surprise, everyone, almost everyone. How many of you are on Instagram? Okay, everybody in the front, keep your hands up for a second. Look to the back. This is a channel that wasn't used by this age category 2 years ago. At least half of you probably took a picture of your lunch this afternoon. So we have to realize that innovation is happening almost subtly all around us. 3 weeks ago, SpaceX launched another one of their rockets. This one was special. This was a heavy rocket. Elon Musk and his team, a successful launch. And to me, just blows my mind, a successful landing of 3 rocket boosters, 2 on land and 1 on sea, in a pod not much bigger than this stage. Now, with every innovation, there comes some risk. In this launch, the recovery of the vehicle, the platform boosters, one of them that landed on sea, Mother Nature took over, and it actually toppled. But what is happening around us is mind-blowing. Things we talk about today aren't being talked about in the past. And again, what we're talking about is how important data is for differentiation, for a better customer experience. People want immediate access. They want to know what's going on right when it happens, and actually, they want recommendations on what they should do in the future, as opposed to just what's happened in the past. Uber's my first example. Uber's a great example because they were one of the first of a sharing economy, ride sharing. They disrupted an entire industry, the taxi industry, overnight. But more importantly than just the ride that we know so well, they help perfect it. So when we're building payment solutions or banking solutions, do we have to completely disrupt what we've known in the past? Uber did not build the ride sharing by looking at taxis and saying, how can we improve payments of a taxi? They wanted to improve the complete experience. As part of that, they also said, we are part of a platform economy. We need to build a better platform, a bigger platform, an expanded platform. Some of their platform extensions have included a tracking system for vehicles, where truck companies can now track vehicles better than they ever had before because of the satellites that have been put up in space. Uber has also built Uber Eats, which is a combination of giving you a recommendation on where you want to eat near where you're going to be ending up in your ride, but also delivery services. I was astounded by the fact that my McDonald's in my neighborhood actually has an Uber Eats logo on their window. They'll deliver McDonald's. Now, I don't know how much anybody likes McDonald's, but I cannot imagine paying for delivery of a Big Mac. But when you think about that, isn't that what open banking is? It's going beyond our normal industry, going beyond what we're set up to do, to be something different, to be something that's unique. Uber also perfected a lot of information on a mobile platform. They're digital first. When you look at it, you not only can hail your ride, you can identify yourself with a color. You know exactly what vehicle you're going to get into and who's going to be your driver. They know who you are. You have completely integrated and seamless payments. I was in a taxi cab last night. I got out of the car and realized, oh my gosh, I really have to pay. And I need cash. But what's also interesting, how unique was it to get to rate your driver and your driver rate you? Does that not build a discipline in the whole engagement that you want to be on good behavior as you want them to be on good behavior? But how many of our mobile apps, on payments or otherwise, do we want to really have rated by the consumer? When we look at Airbnb, it initially became a house sharing, another sharing environment, where you're able to share your house when you're on vacation. But again, very much like Uber, it's extended far beyond that. It has gone from lodging to luxury to lifestyle. Many of us have used Airbnb, but as part of that, you're no longer saying, I just want a place. You're searching online for the best place at the best value. Now, what has happened, though, is that lifestyle engagement has created some challenges. In big cities like Toronto, New York, it has upped the rent for short-term and long-term stays because of the rental properties being put on Airbnb. In fact, they're being challenged in court in a couple cities because all this real estate is now being assigned to Airbnb as opposed to long-term rentals because they can get more money. How many of you use Airbnb experiences as part of your trip? Oh, a lot more than I thought. So I travel a lot worldwide, and part of my trip is usually having a couple extra days, but I many times don't have anybody with me. So I look up Airbnb experiences. I've done things such as a graffiti class in Brooklyn. I've done a drinking tour on rooftops of Medellin, Colombia, where you take pictures at sunset and you kind of stop at probably the fourth bar because you go, okay, I'm more interested in the drinking than the taking of pictures. I've looked at street art in Chile. I've done a sidecar motorcycle tour of Paris at night with a couple that was older than I was, and in the rain. So I had the top over. But these are very unique, but it's a way to extend the Airbnb experience. And again, the application to banking and to payments is that you have to think beyond what we see as what was normal. We have to embrace the change around us and say, are we looking at it in too confined of a way based on what we've done in the past? Are we hooked into what we've been good at in the past and therefore not looking at what can be done in the future? Are we willing to take slight risks to move to the next level? When we look at Amazon, Amazon is more than a retail outlet. It's a data company. In fact, their data technology makes more money for them than retail does. They're also a value exchange company. How many of you have Amazon Prime? Okay, so you pay to shop without even buying anything. You pay for the opportunity to buy something. What's interesting is it used to be for free delivery. Well, everybody offers free delivery now. But what you do it for is because when you search for something, you get it in your first block of ideas. For me, it's going to be a brand name normally. It's going to possibly have red involved. If you can't catch it, red's an important color to me. And on top of that, they also know that no matter what, I want it tomorrow. I may not be home tomorrow, but I want it immediate. So they put those things to the top. But again, We're looking at an organization that is data-centric, that looks at saying, how do you want to be served? I told a group yesterday that we talk about disruption, and when we talk about Kodak and disruption, Kodak's disruption happened over a decade. Disruption for the banking industry, for payments industry, could happen overnight. I use the example that if Chase Bank combined with Amazon to offer a current account, there's no bank in this room or in any room that could come up with something that would be worth possibly the value of a free Prime membership that they could give away. They know their customers. When we talk about risk, the gentleman before me was talking about risk. You know what? Amazon understands risk. Who's returned anything to Amazon before because of size or something? Isn't it astounding that you take your time to return it, but Amazon gets the replacement item to you the next day? I did that with an Amazon Echo, a viewing device, an expensive item, $200-some. But they knew enough about me to say, what is the risk? And what a wow moment. They get mentioned on stage a lot. But it's exceeding expectations, which is what innovation is supposed to do. It's not just supposed to be flash and dash and exciting. It's supposed to make a difference. It's supposed to make my life easier. It's supposed to make my day easier. It's supposed to engage me. It's supposed to make me excited. And what's interesting is consumers now more than ever expect that. They expect you to know them, understand them, and reward them. And now more than ever, they may not tell you what they want, but they're more than happy to tell you what they don't want. There are many times now when you'll go shopping or something will happen during the day, and you know internally, this company can do better because other companies have. Amazon has a culture of innovation. They have introduced and unintroduced or taken off the market several items. In fact, in the Alexa chain alone, they've had 4 or 5 different Echo devices that they've tested and taken off. How many of you have actually introduced something with the knowledge that it may not work? Most of us are too risk adverse to do that. I don't know how many of you saw the video. I was trying to get the video on this because it's a little eerie. It's not a real thing that's happened, but on Twitter about a month ago, they showed this thing and they had the sound of da 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 da, and they showed this blimp going over with all these drones being deployed and making deliveries. Now, we probably aren't going to get to that point, but isn't Amazon a delivery company too? They have gotten a lot of delivery companies out of the chain because they now can deliver. And when I talk about retail, we have a mall in Cleveland that was at one point the biggest mall in the United States. It's since been torn down, like many malls have, been replaced by an Amazon distribution warehouse, which is interesting when you think about the transition of retail. We've gone from single store in malls to a distribution warehouse where thousands upon thousands of companies are represented. As I said, they also are front and center in the voice demand. I'll tell you, from my perspective, when people say, what is the biggest innovation that could happen in the banking industry, I'm going to continue to fall back on voice. The ability to order something, the ability to pay something, the ability to authenticate something by voice is going to happen. It's either going to be by phone, or it can be by an Alexa device or a Google device or an Apple device, of which I have all 3 on my desk. I sometimes think they're talking to each other behind my back. Unfortunately, when I talk about something in my office, I'm never sure who's given up the secret because eventually everybody starts hitting me on my search engine. Apple. Not known necessarily for innovation. I would say fast follower, but boy, they're known for perfection. They usually get it right. Even when we criticize them, it's a good experience in most cases. With Apple, it's about design. Every device you get from Apple feels special. Even if you're a Google user, an Android user, or one of the other competitors, you just know the design of an Apple device is good. Design is important to today's consumer. And we have to think about that as we start building solutions because the design of solutions do matter. I don't know how many of your stores have this. I just realized that in my local Apple store, they have something called Apple Today that was introduced testing-wise about 1.5 years ago. Apple Today is taking all their old Apple bars, the place where people got fixed things and got classes, and turned it into this massive screen at the end of the store. That massive screen allows people to learn about Apple devices, and they actually deploy it and teach classes. It's a community center. It's people actually want to go into their branch. Now, we're talking about a company that sells things that help you get away from these things. But what's interesting, you know why they have the window in the Apple room, because the Apple stores, because there's always people in there. If you're at a traditional bank, the last thing you want is for people to look inside and see that nobody's ever in there. You want to go in that store. You want to engage. In addition, they continue to introduce products that become an integral part of your life. My wife is no more digital than a 90-year-old or a 100-year-old that doesn't want to deal with computers. She uses the computer. She likes the iPad to look at shows, but she's not really digital. For Mother's Day, she said, "Can I get an Apple Watch?" I'm thinking, what has happened to my wife? And she said, "I want to be able to keep track of all the activities I do. I want to keep track of my heart rate, and I want to be reminded when I should do some exercises." Now, an interesting rationale, but the reality is, isn't that what we all want? We all want to get better at what we do, and Apple Watch is a way to do that. Now, there's competitors out there, but how many people say, I want a Fitbit instead? No, you want to go from a Fitbit and upgrade to an Apple Watch. Now, there can be disagreement about that, but isn't Apple trying to integrate themselves within your entire life this way? How much better will it be to get your doctor's review based on what you've done over the last year instead of what you had with your blood test 3 days before? Tesla is another example. What's interesting about Tesla is their dashboard has 2 buttons. Their display, just about 3 months ago, Elon Musk put out a request on Twitter saying that he wanted gamers to apply for a job to work on their display. How many of us wanted gamers, and how many of us are thinking about how strange it's going to be driving in a car that drives itself, that keeps itself away from accidents? Predictive analytics. They also have introduced a surfboard, believe it or not. What's interesting about this, no electronics, nothing that you say is about Tesla. It's a high-end surfboard that's sold out in 5 days. They don't mind innovating to put something on the market to learn. Learn about people, learn about consumers. Google, a great innovator. But AI and platforms are driving what Google's doing. If you use Google email, you'll realize that Google will try to basically finish your sentences based on what you're thinking and knowing what you're probably talking about. I put down digital in a Google search, and I get digital disruption. It always fills it in for me. It knows that's what I'm really talking about. McDonald's. McDonald's now have AI-driven responsive menu items based on your weather, the location, the time of the year, the time of the day. They automatically change based on the environment. They also have display units in the store that you can buy things there in a little kiosk. But when you think about McDonald's, you don't think about AI and platform. But what they do is they realize they'll sell more if it's like what the environments go. They know what people want to buy on a rainy day. Some of the leaders, Google, IBM, Microsoft, and Amazon, have been at the top of the list for 5 years. Why? They're serial reinventors. They will continually look at ways they can transform themselves and change themselves based on the environment. They know what innovation is. So my question to you is, are you ready for the future? Are you ready to change what you've done in the past, to take your successes only as a platform for the future and do something different? Are you willing to actually embrace change, not avoid it? Are you willing to take that rope in a rope class and jump to the next rope, as dangerous that may be, as opposed to letting it stop swinging and not be able to jump at all? Are you willing to take risks? I talked about small risk, like at a roulette wheel. Place your bets everywhere to make sure you can move forward and not be stuck where you are. This is difficult for a banker. This is difficult for somebody who's had a whole legacy in payments. Because taking risk is against what we've been taught. But it's the only way to move forward. It's the way that Elon Musk, it's the way that Amazon, it's the way that Microsoft, it's the way that IBM continues to move forward. They take modified risks. And finally, most importantly, are you willing to disrupt yourself? Disrupt yourself on a personal basis. Disrupt yourself on a professional basis. And disrupt yourself on a corporate basis. I thank you.